And then just because I want to make sure you see this one, I'm hitting in I put it in answered. So
Sure.
my husband has been a sex addict for 40 years. He is 61. We have been married for 25 years, 3 kids. 1 year ago, I made a final discovery and hit the wall and was ready to leave. He finally started to take his recovery seriously. We had a formal therapeutic disclosure 2 months ago with polygraph, very traumatic to find out about acting out behaviors that I had not anticipated, including an unpaid affair and a paid affair. He has been working really hard on his recovery and has been answering any and all questions that I have around his disclosure. I just found out last week that he lied by omission on a few facts around the paid affair to try to make himself look better. This crossed my boundary, and I have asked for a 60-day out of the house therapeutic separation for my own emotional safety. I am only now starting to understand all the manipulating and gaslighting that has been my 25 years of marriage. My question: can an addict who has been lying to himself and others for 40 plus years learn to be absolutely honest?
Wow, that's a big question.
So this is a
And
question. So I'm gonna interrupt you just one quick. So Dr. Rob did on Wee Tong Lin a presentation on prodependence, and this question was asked, and he was just starting to answer it, and the session got cut off. So you have seen this question before, and you were just starting with the wow, and then we got interrupted. So here I asked them to bring this question here, and they did. So
sure.
this is the question.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate your being here, and I think these are really good questions. And I believe what I said to you last time was I was really impressed with your willingness to take this boundary and this time out. And I think I said far too many spouses are willing to put up with behaviors that clearly you've been hurt by before. And yet, for whatever reason, you get really hopeful or thinks it's going to change. Or so I think concrete action, like you need to get out of here for a while if you're going to act that way, is really, really good. And I don't care if you have to take them out of your bed or out of your bedroom or out of your house. But just saying things to an addict does not affect us nearly as much as doing things. And I have to tell you that it's seeking integrity.
We lost you for a second. Seeking integrity.
Oh, that's
what?
okay. I jumped to earbuds. At Seeking Integrity, which is our treatment program, easily 90% of the people who are there because they want to save their relationships of one sort or another. So I think for us as spouses to say, I'm going to distance myself from you is the exact kind of thing that will leave us thinking, oh my God, I have to do something about this. It's always been fascinating to me that I can dismiss you, disregard you, ignore you, lie to you, but and I'm just fine with all that. But if you, and by the way, I'll blame you for a lot of that. You were doing this, if you were doing that, if you're only nicer about this, I deserve to do this because you're acting that way. But the minute one of you moves an inch away from us, oh my God, all our abandonment issues come up. And it's like, I didn't realize how important they were to me. And I didn't realize how much I wanted to stay here. And I'm going to lose my family. And suddenly they wake up and realize what's important to you, to them, and to you. I absolutely believe that anyone, any human being, unless they are so mentally ill and so impaired that they cannot heal, and we know such people, they are unfortunate. They are just too troubled to be able to change their behavior. They often aren't functional in the world. But I absolutely believe and have faith, and this is actually where my spiritual beliefs show up, in that everyone who makes a commitment to real healing can heal. Whether they heal in the way that their partner wants or not, I can't say. But they, it depends on the person, the situation, but they can heal. And so someone has been lying to themselves and others for 40 years. I have to say that's a great treatment candidate. That's someone you should send to us. And the reason I say that is because when someone is 61 years old, and I often say this to clients, I started this process at 26. That means therapy, 12-step programs, all of that stuff. I am now 61. If I had same age as your spouse, had I started at 61, I never could have caught up and gotten to where I am now because if you don't start many years ago, so to the 61-year-olds, I say stuff like, in 15 years, you're going to have a walker and you're going to be pooping your diapers, and who's going to take care of you after what you've done? And Those are the kind of challenges I give to people my age. But the reality is that we really can learn to be different. It may not be the way you would want us to be different, but for example, a lot of the men that I work with aren't honest the very first time out. And they're not just honest about sex. They're not honest about, did I take out the garbage? I mean, because we look at you and we think, oh my God, they're going to be mad at me and I don't want them to be mad at me and I want to do what I want to do anyway, or whatever we think, and then we lie to you. However, the good news is that those of us who consistently lie are able to find other ways to be honest with you. One of the things we preach at work is, hey, you may face that spouse and be so worried that you don't tell them the truth, but you can tell them within 24 hours. So we might set. There are people who you look them in the eye, you ask them what, and they just lie straight out because they have issues. But I can get people to say, even though you might lie straight out, something like you can come 25 years, 20, I'm sorry, you should come back forward 24 hours later and clear it up. So there are ways that we can learn to recognize our lying, learn to live in a different way, whether we get to not do it or clean it up or do an amends. But yes, I think that we can learn to be honest with ourselves first. And I like that you said that. And then we have the room and the capacity inside of ourselves to be honest with others. And this is a lot of what I'm not trying to sell treatment to you guys. People always say that, like, why do you say that? But I don't want them to think I'm trying to sell them something, as you know, Tammy. But anyway, this is what a man like this is exactly what treatment is for, which is 61 years old, haven't really worked on it, have been lying, went through disclosure, left stuff out by omission, and has a 40-year relationship. He has an awful lot to lose, and you've already kicked him out. So there isn't a lot more that he's going to move forward unless he really makes some decisions and changes his behavior. So Tammy, I don't know if I answered that question, but I sure said a lot of things.
Well, I want to key in on two things. So first of all, the absolutely honest, and it won't like that. I think I trip over that word because, like Dr. Rob said, will it be absolute honesty in that moment? And if that's what you're looking for, that will be very challenging. But can there be an ability to clean it up that has integrity about it? That I absolutely agree with. And it's so hard because we talk about formal therapeutic disclosures and this the omissions are we tell people don't do it unless you're willing to be truthful, and the lie of omission is still a lie. So I'm sorry, because it actually sets things worse. And the silly addict brain is going like, but they won't find out. Like, well, because that's our pattern, and that's the lie that we tell ourselves is they aren't going to find out. They will, and look what happens. It makes it incredibly worse. But I so honor that you took the hard line that you needed to do for your safety. And I really also appreciated that you're like beginning to understand what life is, how it's different, not living under the constant gaslighting and lies. So good job for you. Next question.
May I,
Go ahead.
Tammy, one
Sure.
more thing? This person has a lot of work to do. So if you, and I didn't hear anything, Tammy, unless I missed it, about 12-step work.
Nope.
I don't know what
That might not have been put. Yeah. But yeah, no.
I don't know what working hard on his recovery means, or who the person is that they're working with, or, at what level they've worked, whether they've done workshops or treatment, but when someone is in, and the reason I keep talking about treatment is when someone is in this set of circumstances, they've been married 40 years, they're 61, they're still crossing boundaries, they're still lying, that, this is someone I'm concerned is not going to get it, just like you're concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't even talk about the polygraph. So, okay, next question. Aside from sobriety, what are the necessary parts, activities for the sex addict for recovery from sex addiction?
Well, I think that was mentioned above. Rigorous honesty in all my affairs, I think, was mentioned above. Is that what you were giggling about, Tammy?
Well, no, I was like, it's like, I mean, the stopping the behavior is the beginning. It's all, it's, I talk to people who don't come to treatment. I was like, you absolutely can put together a plan, and it's 12-step in our drop-in groups and working with a qualified therapist. But, stopping the behavior is that's the symptom. So what do you need to do to address the underlying issues so you don't relapse or just switch to another form of acting out that, is less harmful maybe, but is still, keeping the dopamine going. So So it, when I first got into recovery, and I kind of forgot about this till just this moment, but it was like, you come into recovery and you change everything. It's like everything changes. Your lens of, of dealing with life, like the rigorous honesty. I need to be honest about taking out the trash too, not just like, okay, well, I'm not acting out sexually, so I must be okay. It really, it takes, I say this often, if you are actively working on your recovery to the same level of energy that you pursued your addiction, you're going to do great. You're going to do great because you're going to be very all in with healing in a different way. So,
Yeah, I wanted to add more concrete things, which is what necessary parts. Well, I don't know what sobriety, how you achieved sobriety, or what sobriety means to you, or what sobriety is for you. I might want to check it out. So one of the things I think is absolutely essential that Tammy talked about underneath the, well, the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is the addiction. It's the symptom. What's underneath is a whole bunch of other stuff. So being in good therapy, if you can afford it, is really helpful. Working 12-step programs is essential, or some kind of group. Accountability is one of the most important things that matter to me as an addict, because it's just so easy for me to, as the last question was, just say things the way I think you want to hear them, or, and that whole 24-hour rule, I tell you within 24 hours, it works even better when I have someone I'm working with in 12-step programs and I can say, hey, I lied to my spouse today. What do you think I should do? So having people in our lives who are consistently question our thinking, being role models, being, and this is not sexual, this is non-sexual, same-sex relationships that have to do with our growing, our ability to connect and remain connected. So what Tammy said, I think, is also really essential. And all of you spouses ask me this. It's fun. I mean, I don't mean to be funny, but I'm going to say it, just excuse my language. What I hear is, I think he or she is sober, but when are they going to stop being an asshole? Or when are they going to stop being so narcissistic? Or when are they going to stop being so self-focused? And, I think that sobriety is a very difficult but important step at the beginning. Nothing else happens beyond that, because you'll never get out of your cycle of misery if you're acting out. But self-esteem, reducing shame, learning how to have empathy and compassion, realizing what I need and what you need and how to make that happen, those unfortunately are later stage steps. I've heard very often, where is his empathy? Where is her empathy? It might be empathy is a late stage step. That's why I wrote Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. The reason I wrote Out of the Doghouse is because I knew that many, many men in particular would not know how to show up for a partner or family and be in recovery. So I actually, in other words, I knew that they wouldn't understand empathy. So I explained to them how to be empathic, because I think there's a saying, Tammy, you can work your way into, you're going to live your way into, I don't know what you're going to
act
remember.
your way into good living, not live your way into good acting. So,
There you go. Can you say that again? Act your
act
way.
your way into good living, not live your way into good acting.
I like that. So, and that's what we're talking
That's
about,
it.
right? I don't know that every man who reads Out of the Doghouse is going to learn how to be empathic inside of themselves. But what I can teach them is how to act empathically. And if I'm empathic towards you and you greet me with warmth and it brings you toward me, I learned something. Oh, when I treat them that way, this happens. And so I tried to write a guidebook for how to have compassion and empathy when you don't really feel it inside. And so the reason I'm talking about all this is being kinder, being nicer, being a better human being, being more honest, more compassionate. These take time. They don't happen right away because they're human characteristics. The acting out is a behavior, but the rest of it is who I am. And evolving who I am is not defined by how sober I am. It has to do with how I'm living my life. And that takes longer than just stopping the behavior.
So in the chat, we have a work group for Sex Addiction 101 and Porn Addiction 101. And the book that you just mentioned, Out of the Doghouse, that group started at the same time this webinar did, and it was full. So we'll start another one in February. So those are 6-week courses, and there are the psychoeducation that you don't get in therapy, but really good structure and foundation. So the Out of the Doghouse that Dr. Rob mentioned, it will be how to work through that information with peer support. So check those out. Those are supplemental options for you. We provide lots of resources. This is free. Some are free, some are low cost, and then treatment is, expert treatment for life-changing results. But we have a variety of options for you. So next question. I'm a male SA. Are there healthy ways or actions to express or take to address the intensity side of addiction? If so, what are some examples? How do I safely communicate them and this to my partner? This feels like when you talk about addiction is intensity instead of intimacy.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that Tammy, you could answer this. You don't need me. But you're right. We also, as addicts, as sex and love addicts, our norm around sex is intensity. It's secrecy, it's intensity, it's heart pounding. Nobody's going to know, and I'm going to go off and do this, and it's going to be really exciting. And so our approach to sex inside of us is we get interested in it when things are really intense. But what we confuse is intensity with intimacy, because intimacy is not intense. It's quiet, it's subtle, it's connecting. And I think we know how to do intense, but we really struggle to do intimate. And so what else do I want to say about that? I got that question. Oh, there we go. Tammy, why don't you jump in there, because I'm not sure what else to say.
I think it's learning to communicate in different ways with your partner. Dr. David often talks about like sensate, focus, touch, so it takes away the intensity and it gives you connection and communicate. I think having conversations about, why you're looking for the intensity. Intensity does exactly what Dr. Rob was talking about, but it keeps you distanced in any kind of meaningful way, because you're so in the dopamine of like, it's not
Our drug.
about, it is not about connection. I often have people that are reaching out going, we want to reconnect intimacy. And I know they're talking about sex. And I'm going like, sex addicts prove time and again that they can have sex without being intimate, So it's learning to do things in a very different way. We talked about, some foundational components. What's your 3-circle plan? What can you do that engages in your outer circle behaviors as, with you and your partner? Like, what is that's meaningful, not about sex addiction, about healthy living. I've shared before, I like to hike, that's a meaningful thing for me. So, that helps me connect with other people, in a meaningful way, and nature. So what's in your outer circle? How can you explore that with your partner? That will help you build real intimacy, but different than the intensity. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I was thinking also, and I just want to say this because I need to say it, is that for some, what you refer to as intensity may be psychiatric symptoms. If you're bipolar, you constantly feel this sense of pressure and drivenness, and you're kind of impulsive. And people who are anxious or have obsessive thoughts can often be very intense, very distracted. ADD is also, attention deficit is also a disorder of seeking intensity. Ooh, that's like seeking integrity, only seeking intensity. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think there's nothing wrong with getting checked out by a psychiatrist and finding out, to be honest with you, I struggled with my recovery for many years in the beginning, many years ago. And I went to see a doc, and he was like, oh, well, you have this and that. And I didn't realize that. And by treating this and that, it just made it easier for me to focus on intimacy rather than trying to get my brain to move away from intensity. So there are mental health issues there that I absolutely would want to make sure I address before I, go all to the wall if there's something that I'm not doing right.
Yeah, and that's a great point. But if you're doing that, please go to a qualified professional, not your general GP that, because they just hand you pills. And so you want somebody who understands addiction, but also understands these aspects so that they can treat you properly and with a time release medication that addresses this symptom but doesn't negatively impact your recovery from addiction. So you're getting the right help, really makes a huge difference. But that's a great point, too. So
Hey, Tammy, did
yeah.
I tell you I found a hobby, by the way? I've been looking for a hobby for such a long time, and I finally found something I want to do.
And
I want to collect vinyl. I used to be so into albums, and
albums. Okay. Like
I
I'm
have
thinking
friends my
vinyl
age who are like,
cloth.
"Oh, I have a garage full of records and I don't want them." I'm like, "Really? You don't want them?" So I'm thinking about how much I love music and how fun it would be to start a new album collection. So and trade them and find them like baseball cards. So anyway, that's my plan for a hobby because it sounds fun. So I'm
I have a
excited about
whole
that.
container of them. I'm not sharing, but I will. No,
Oh,
I will give you the list of, and you can
I
be
don't want the
jealous.
list. If you're not giving me the albums, thank you very much. But I have people like, I can't have these in my garage
No,
anymore,
I've got a
so
player, like it's right over
yeah.
there, and you can still hear the crackly sound when you play them. So yes, yeah.
Well, young people are really into vinyl now, and I'm like, what's wrong with them? But anyway, so
No, it's good. Okay,
can I have
but
one
we
record? Will you sell
digress.
me one record?
I would give you one record.
Okay, thank
Give you.
you.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Rob. My SA husband, sober 18 months, recovery 6 months, has admitted to fantasizing and masturbating to attractive female clients while in his sales position. He still has these same clients to lunches and dinners on occasion. He assures me that these fantasies do not occur, but it still makes me uncomfortable. How should I handle this?
Well, I would say to every partner, and this is a perfect example, trust your gut. If you think something isn't right, it isn't. And if someone says, I have this compulsive and addictive behavior, and now I'm going through the same circumstances exactly, but I'm not doing it, that's a lie. So my guess is, sorry, that this person is lying to you. And I don't usually say things that overtly, but if I were attractive to my clients, if I found my clients attractive, and then I was actually masturbating to fantasies about them, I would not be able to have meals with them. And by the way, if I were involved with this person, if they were my husband, I would say, if you go out to lunch with one more of those women, there's the door, I'm changing the locks, because this is disrespectful of you. This is something that leaves you feeling uncomfortable. And what is he doing about it? I mean, isn't it your spouse's job to help you feel better about yourself and feel comfortable and safe, as it's your job for him? So why is he entering a situation over and over again that he already knows will make you insecure and uncomfortable, to the point where you're asking us? So, by the way, I hate to say this, and if he's in the room, he's not going to like me, but I bet there's more going on. This just doesn't sound right to me. If he admits to fantasizing and masturbating and still taking, something's going on. And somehow I think it involves hotel rooms, or there's just more to this story. I've been working this field for too long to not be able to see through that. And I don't want to make you feel, I mean, maybe that isn't true, but my gut, I don't know. Tammy, what do you think?
I'm 100% with you. I don't none of this is, none of this is okay. Like we know people that get a different job, because the
Sell their
work
house.
situation was not okay. They move whatever they need to do. If, and I had somebody that told me today that they weren't ever going to do that again. And I was like, I've been in recovery a long time. I can't tell you for sure that I will never do that again. I do what I need to do today to make sure that I don't, but I'm never going to say
Never.
forever. I can't do it. I can't, I'm an addict, and so
Well, I
this
want
is
to
like,
add
oh,
to
I
that.
don't do that anymore. And it's in my head and not even visible. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I want to validate you, Tammy. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
that's okay.
Because I've been treating people for, I don't know, going on 30 years, and I've treated them in all kinds of settings, whether it be outpatient or inpatient or residential, all those kinds of things. And I have found that these kinds of issues often have a whole lot more going on than you realize. And I was going to say something else to you. Um, no, it'll come back to me. Why don't we keep going,
Okay, it's
Tammy?
the
God, I hate
fantasies and
getting
things.
older.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so the next one is discovery was 13 months ago. We had a 3-day intensive disclosure 5 months ago. He has worked his program, and I believe he has remained sober and committed to me. Although he has not respected my boundaries, like give me space, quit telling me you love me, etc. Oh, there might be more in the, so,
That's
okay,
okay.
here.
That's plenty.
No, hang on,
Um,
here's more. Um, so the rest of it, I think, is he has got caught lying a couple of times, benign stuff, not necessarily. Then he admitted to a couple other lies. I asked him to move out, which he did a month ago.
so what's the question, Tammy? Do you
I
mind?
don't know.
Because
Like,
I
this
don't
is one
see
of
a
those
question.
where, oh, here, he started out of the doghouse tonight. Can you tell me more about this group? This is one of those where I'll tell you really briefly about the group, but oh, it is, and I put the link in the chat, but Dr. Rob's most popular book thus far is Out of the Doghouse for Men Who Have Been Caught Cheating. And it is, kind of a helpful primer on, here, instead of doing this, do this. And he also states you don't have to do these things, but if you want to be in a relationship, you do, so you can choose. But, like when you say, I want to go back to, oh, he says he's sober and all this kind of stuff, but you've caught him. That's not sober. Like, if he's lying about stuff and he's not coming back to you within whatever the time period is, 24 hours to me is max. um you're still catching him, and that's not a person who's working on integrity. That is not a person who I would trust, is really on a recovery path. So the workshop is any of the work
Mm.
groups, they're not workshops, they're work groups. Any of the work groups are psychoeducation, live facilitated, 6 weeks long, 90 minutes per week. And it goes through, the information, sex addiction 101, porn addiction 101, or Out of the Doghouse. So there's material that they're going through, there's exercises, there's homework for them to bring back the next week. So it's not a replacement for 12 step, it's not a replacement for therapy, but it is a great component, to help support, recovery.
Yeah, I want to say, just to add to that, so that you guys don't think we have left you out, is that Tammy and I and a couple other folks are working very hard on a betrayed partners group, to help you guys deal with your anger. The questions that are being asked here: anger,
Mhm,
mistrust,
mhm,
how do we get back there
mhm.
again? Sex, should I stay? All of those questions, all of that stuff, we're putting into a training for spouses. So, and we're working hard, aren't we, Tammy? Um,
We do, and we've got couples healing from betrayal workshop or work group that will start again too. So there are other things, but these basic foundational issues, like those will be addressed in these work groups. Now, as with everything in recovery, it is, people choose to participate on various levels. We always hope people are actively engaged, but there are some people that show up, keep their camera off, don't, participate. They get less out of it. But the opportunity is there if they're willing. At least if they're showing up and paying attention and not just looking at porn on their phone, I guess that's progress, right? So.
Although I do worry about the people who show up in those courses and they do it to say to you, well, see, I'm doing something. So, to Tammy's point, the education, when I believe recovery is about all parts of us. So we need spiritual growth, we need emotional growth, we need healing in a connection to our past. And we also have a brain and we need to learn intellectually. And unfortunately, what happens is, I've seen this in so many years of therapy, is, in an hour a week, you get the relationship piece, you get the trauma piece, you might get the addiction piece. But how this all fits together? What is addiction? Where does it come from? How can you begin to address it? What does it mean? What's underneath it? Those kind of questions are educational. And you really, having run treatment centers for so long, I understand that you get that when you're in treatment. We do a lecture and then we do therapy, but you don't get that when you're in outpatient therapy. And that's why we created it, so people could have this piece that went along with what they're in therapy for, that matches it. But what I was saying was, this is not enough. It's nice that we offer these courses. I think we are filling a gap that needs to be filled. But if this person is in therapy, if they're not in 12 step, if they're not reaching out and being accountable to other people, then they just have a bunch of information that's interesting. They might as well have read the book, because the information, what do we say about insight alone availed us nothing? The idea of learning more, I'll give you another example. Whenever the men enter seeking integrity, and you guys, I'm going to see you tomorrow. One of the first questions they want to know is why. Why do I have this problem? Why am I like this? Why do I do these things? Why do I act this way? And I have to tell them to put why away. Because why, although we want a brief understanding of why, so you don't hate yourself, you understand it came from somewhere and you're broken, not malicious. But beyond that, why is much less important than how. How do I stop? How do I figure this out? How do I have a better relationship? How do I not hurt myself and others? The process is really, it's nice to know why. I think it's nice to know why about 2 years later. But in the early stages of recovery, I need to know what to do when something difficult comes up and I want to go act out. And that's much more important. Oh, and by the way, I could sit all day long somewhere and say, I think the reason I want to go act out is because I'm feeling abandoned by my sister. But that doesn't stop me from acting out. That just means I understand why. So anyway, that's a lot of stuff.
I need to add one thing to that, because I hear often from betrayed partners or from the addict who's going, my spouse wants to know why. And I've said that will be like, a normal brain is never going to understand why we do the crazy things. Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know. Another
How could
addict
you
can
love me
understand
and
it.
do
Yeah,
this anyway?
exactly. Yeah. And so the how is, how do I stop the behavior, and how do we move forward? What does that look like? Because otherwise the addiction and the past is dragging both of you, you know, and holding you chained. So, you know, not dismissing how important it is to stop the behavior and move forward and to address the pain, but really it is, how do we move forward, you know, given where we are right at this moment. You know, you'll never figure out a good enough answer for why, where you finally go, oh, now it makes sense and I can completely forgive him and we can go on our merry way. It doesn't work that way. So, ready for the next question?
Yeah, but I wanted to say something about the last one more
Please.
thing, because this person said, although he has not respected my boundaries, like giving me space. So this also tells me someone doesn't get it. Because, by the way, out of the doghouse, one of the first things I say to guys is don't apologize, don't make excuses, don't tell them why you did this, because it all, you know, and number one, it begs for forgiveness, and you're the one who's been hurt, and I don't need your forgiveness. I need to get my shit together. And so many of the men I work with are so focused on you. You know, what if they leave me? What if they're upset with me? What if I do this? How about they don't focus enough on them? And that is a problem. You're not going to leave me if I'm really dedicated to my own recovery, because it will spill out into our relationship. But if I focus on making our relationship better and having you forgive me, that is not the right direction for me to be going. And that will come as a result of my healing. It isn't the place to start it. So when you write, doesn't respect my boundaries, doesn't give me space, is still telling me he loves me 10 times a day, I think throwing him out was a great idea. I love that. In fact, I'll pay for the locksmith. What's the next question, Tammy?
Well, and I want to tag on. Oh shoot! Now I completely forgot what you were just
Oh,
talking about.
good.
But I
I'm
was like,
not alone.
yeah, no. But it was about
I was
the
talking about not
partner.
respecting this person's boundaries.
Yeah, but it was the partner.
Tammy,
Oh,
this
the
is the
focus on
blind
the
leading the
partner.
blind.
The focus on partners, and it's a great, like, I don't have to look at me if I'm focusing on, oh, how do I help you? How do I help you? Like, it's really challenging because they're like it sounds good, like, oh, I want to help you heal. To me, it's manipulative, and
And distracting.
I'm gonna, yeah, and distracting. I want to focus on you, and then I don't have to focus on me, like it, you know. So I really agree. It has to be, I'm doing my work. I'm going to do the best I can on every given day to do my work. And hopefully you start seeing that I'm changing and becoming trustworthy.
I think one more thing about addicts, especially when they go through treatment or they've been through an intense period of healing, is that we get I can't say that word, evangelical, which means we go through treatment, we learn a lot, and then all of a sudden we have to help everyone in our lives recover and heal because now we've seen the light. And the problem is we need to just focus on ourselves for a while. And again, as we were saying, to say I'm going to heal my family, I'm going to, focus on my spouse, excuse me, is to not embrace the issue, which is I have a problem and I need to look at it. So
So the next question is from M so I recently confronted my husband after I discovered he has been using escorts regularly over the past few years. I reacted poorly, he reacted poorly, accusing me of pushing him to it. He is angry with me, even though he is at fault. I went to get him help for the sake of our children. I don't think I will ever trust him again. Do you recommend me trying again with him to get him help since he is clearly in denial? Or do I move forward with contacting an attorney?
Well, I can't answer that question because I don't know to what degree he believes he has a problem or to what degree he's willing to save his relationship over it. I don't know if he understands that he can lose his relationship over this and that you're not just threatening or, calling out. Oh, by the way, I recommend that nobody threaten abandonment unless you mean it. If you tell us addicts, well, if you do this one more time, I'm leaving you, and then we do it again and you don't leave, what we've learned is, oh, well, we can get away with anything. So one of the things I would not use as a form of anger and to throw at someone is I'm leaving. Because if you're leaving, you better leave. But as far as this question, a lot of people are not going to like this. I think it's great to get a lawyer. I don't think it matters whether you stay together, you don't stay together, you separate your money, you don't separate your money, but you need to know what will happen if you do and how you can protect yourself and how you can take care of yourself. You're living with someone who's lying to you. And when you found out about the lies, got angry at you, I have to tell you, but there's probably at least a third of the men that I treat are supporting sex workers, are supporting girlfriends, are buying thousands of dollars of jewelry and taking them on vacations or just giving them money to live. So, sorry. So when you were thinking about an attorney, I would be thinking about, I wonder how much money is going out the door, not to mention time, that could be given to our family or our kids or whatever, and you don't know. So I'm not saying, and I want everyone to hear this, I am not saying divorce. I am not even saying necessarily not to live together, but I am saying that when you say to an addict, I am taking care of myself and I am looking at my options for self-protection because I don't trust you, that's a pretty big statement that you matter, that you're taking care of yourself and you're not going to put up with this crap anymore, even if you never act on it beyond getting the information. So do I recommend that you move forward to contact a lawyer? Absolutely. Do I agree that that might lead to leaving or not working it out? Or I think that's a separate issue. I think you have to take care of yourself and do what you need to do. Look, somebody could be hitting you and you need to learn how to deal with abuse, but that doesn't mean in a year or two when they've worked on themselves and they stop doing that and they become a decent human being that you might not still want to be with them, but you might go to a shelter and see a lawyer in the meantime. So, all bets are off until he says, I understand that I have a problem. I understand that it's hurt you and our family, and I'm going to work on it. And I'm so sorry that I blamed you for my problem. And if you don't hear that out of him, you're heading in the right direction. That's all I can say. Tammy?
No, I concur. I often tell people contact an attorney. It's you need to know what it would look like. Otherwise, it's whatever you make up in your head. But every state's laws are different. You have children, like you taking care of you and the children. That to me would be the most meaningful thing, And there will be natural consequences as a result of his behavior, whether the natural consequences are I choose to get help, I choose to get qualified help and change, or things continue to devolve. That's up to him.
And I want to add to that, Tammy, is to my point, is I recently confronted my husband after I discovered he's using escorts regularly. Escorts are not cheap. And it's not unusual for men I work with to fall for an escort, to get involved with one in particular. I'm worried about your finances. And I don't know, maybe you have lots of money and it doesn't matter. But there's no mother who has said to me, I couldn't use a few more dollars in my kid's college account. Nobody, no matter how much money you have, or I could have used that money to go on vacation with my children, or, and I just have no idea how much he's spending. But his reacting poorly tells me an awful lot about how much he's lying to you.
And get an STD test for you too. So,
all of you, please.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question, can you talk a bit about why my addict spouse accuses me of being controlling. He gets text messages. Some contain pics, videos. I have requested to see them. His response is that he doesn't know or is interested in who texts him, so he just deletes them. Texting other women was part of his acting out behavior. He constantly accuses me of trying to control his life, and I'm always going to hold his past over his head.
Tammy, do you want to start?
Oh
Because
my
I might
gosh,
not
this
say
is
very
like,
nice things.
yeah, this is like, so the behavior that he was problematic for him continues. There's texts involving other people. He apparently doesn't have hasn't blocked numbers, because I don't get random texts from just anybody. I mean, it just doesn't happen. So is his sponsor or therapist getting the report on, does he have filtering software on it? You should have the password to all of his things. Him deleting it, you can still find the deleted text. It's harder, but you could, you can be tech savvy and find those things. So trust me, other betrayed partners know how to do that. They'll tell you exactly what to do. But his blaming you and calling you, I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about, that he's still blaming you, not taking
Gaslighting.
responsibility. And until and unless he says, I'm really sorry that my past behavior and continuing behavior, is problematic for you, and I'm going to work on it. You may be going to consult the same divorce attorneys that
Right.
other people have too. So,
And I want to add to that when someone blames you for looking, what they're really saying is, I'm covering up my stuff. And the more I can make you the problem, then it's like a smoke screen. I can deflect and make you feel bad about yourself. And then I don't have to feel, and then it's just like I threw you in I threw you somewhere to distract you. And this is all a distraction. By the word, I was going to use that A word again. I'm sorry. This person's an asshole. I mean, how awful is this person that you're involved with, that that they're continuing the behavior, that they're blaming you, that they're, and by the way, texting, I'm sure that there's a whole lot more going on than texting. So, hey, Tammy, I got the third call from the same number. Give me a minute.
okay, I'm going to start with this one. I'm a male addict. I have been very busy work schedule, especially in spring, summer, and fall, where I may start as early as 5:30 a.m. and work as late as 9 p.m. or around then. Are there therapists that work around these hours affordably? That's one question. Is there even an option? I work every other Saturday, so I don't know if that's an option. Any advice, tips, suggestions would be appreciated. I didn't take time off to work to act out. I acted out around work. I can't afford to take time off of work. So yes, there are qualified therapists that work, and they have different hours, and so email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com with your location, and I'll see what I can do to find that. But here's the deal, you're joining this live, great. Well, there are drop-in groups that are free. Yeah, they're not therapy, but they're good support, and there are all kinds of times of the day and on the weekends. And there's previously recorded webinars. You can watch these on, let's see, I got to get this right, on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. This one, you under resources, you'll see previously recorded. So there's support things. You can, I mean, I know lots of people who have headphones in while they're working, and you know what? They're listening to a podcast. They're listening to what was the recorded webinar. So there's lots of ways to get good stuff in and support. At the end of the day, though, at some point, it is, how important is my recovery? What am I really willing to do? And it may be that go, I'm going to take my lunch at 3 p.m., so that I can work with my therapist. Many of them are doing, virtual. They still need to be licensed in your state. But I have to believe that if you put your recovery as primary, yes, you need to work, but is there a way to do it so that it balances out? So as far as affordability, I don't know anybody's pricing. Don't ever want to know. I don't know who takes insurance, who doesn't. Don't care. I will give you a list of qualified therapists that would be for you to check in. But there's some really good options, and those work groups. We have those. Those are on the weekend too, and so you may be able to plug into a low cost work group on seekingintegrity.com. So,
Well, I have I'm a therapist. I don't know if you knew that, Tammy, or not. So
I
I'm
I kind of figured that out, but thanks for
as a
sharing.
therapist, sure, no problem.
Mhm.
As a therapist, I look at things, I observe things, and sometimes I see things that others aren't looking at or may not come to them because that's my job. So one of the things I see in here that we haven't talked about is I may start as early as 5:30 a.m. and work as late as 8 p.m. So let me put it this way: you're never going to get sober, never. When I have men come into treatment, that they hear things from me like, "Remember when you worked 80 hours a week or 60? That's over. That's over. If you want to restore your relationship, if you want to heal, if you want to have a life worth living, then you can't work that many hours. It's like you have a heart condition, you have to rest more often. Well, in our case, it's like diabetes. We have to go do the maintenance that helps us to stay well. So the first place I go with this, forget the therapist. And by the way, think about it. If you're trying to figure out how to work a therapist into your, which is 1 hour a week from home, I don't see you going to lots of meetings. I don't see you going to support groups. I don't see you in group therapy, or going to intensives or treatment. You're working your life around your recovery. You need to work your recovery around your life. And so what disturbs me about this whole question is that your focus is how can I fit something into my busy schedule rather than my whole life is on the line. And what do I, you wouldn't, if you had a heart attack, you wouldn't be worried about when you could fit in the doctor on your busy schedule. You'd be lying in a bed getting taken care of. You are ruining your life. How much time would you like to take to help with that?
And
Yeah.
the justification of like, well, I didn't act out at work. Like it doesn't matter. Like that, that's inconsequential. So great, you didn't act out at work. That is not the safety net. I
Well,
agree. If you're not focused, like for me, I had to take. I work a lot of hours. It's not my best. It's not my best thing. And when I first got sober, I had time off. Like I had months off while I got my poop together, sort of, like I had to move in a different direction. It took me time. I needed that space. I went to so many meetings every week because I needed that to focus and get a clue how to do life. I'm grateful that I, figured out how to manage to do that. It included for me moving back home with my parents. It wasn't, I mean, like I was willing to do that. It was that important to me to do life differently. So
I want to add to that, Tammy, which is I don't know if you saw the last two sentences. I didn't take time off of work to act out, which means work was more important than acting out, but I
mhm,
acted out around work or at
mhm.
work. So I'm sorry, you can't afford to take time off work, but you have time to act out in the workplace. Do you understand that doesn't make any sense? That time you're spending acting out could be time you took off work, could be time, or if you really so focused on frickin' work, it could be where you were making more money and working more. So, and by the way, addiction escalates. So if you think you're taking some time with it now, give it a year and see how much time you're giving it. I just, in this situation, I feel badly for you. I'd rather you weren't looking for help because you're not really looking. You're just sort of trying to figure out what is the minimum you can do to try to solve a lifelong problem. And you might as well save your money. I mean, that's not going to happen. I'm sorry. You have to make this your focus in life. And right now, and by the way, I can't afford to take time off work. Yes, you can. You can take time off from work. I don't care if you have to, get on the bus and get rid of your car. How much do you want to get? How much do you want this? We know people who are in prison. We know people who've lost their careers. We know people who, and I mean physicians, people who, work 10 years to get their career together. They don't question whether they need to take time out to do this. They understand everything they have is on the line. And I don't think you quite get that yet.
I moved back in with
Hey,
my parents. So
hey, Tammy, can
yeah,
I tell you briefly about
yeah,
my narcissistic personality problem?
sure. Let's talk
So
about you.
yeah, because it plays out right here. Because when we started, we had 71 participants, and then we had
Mhm.
69, and then we had 67. And of course, I'm thinking, what did we do wrong? What did we say? Why did
Oh
the six
wow.
people leave? I have to interview them and find out why they didn't like it. I mean, because that's my narcissism. So I'll just ignore
And
that.
I just go, people come and go. Thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for hanging out.
Oh my
You don't
God, we
know
lost
what's
lost
going
two
on with
more
it.
people.
And it's okay. It's okay. Thank you for staying. It's all
Because it's
good.
all
So
about me, right?
here's the next question. Just
Okay.
recently sober from both addictions, SA and AA, and experiencing something unusual. It's not, because we've already talked about this. It's not, it's very normal and a little scary. I'm now having anxiety and panic attacks. Is that normal side effect of being sober and raw with all feelings and not numbing out or acting out to cope? Yes. Yes. It's very uncomfortable. You're actually experiencing real emotion. You know, I talked to this person this morning. We talked about some grounding techniques and mindfulness. There are things that you can do to manage through that, but understanding that, yes, you've numbed that out for years, decades, now you're going to feel it. I shared this morning too that when I first got sober, I was in an emotion, and the sponsor, whatever, said to me, "What are you feeling?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm just feeling, and it's a lot, and I hate it." And I did. It might have even been a good emotion. I don't know, but I was so uncomfortable, so not used to experiencing those because I numbed them out so much. So, but you know what? I learned to appreciate both the negative and the positive emotions and not swing through, because I was like, like on the pendulum going, the only time I was in the middle was when I was swinging through to the other side. So it's okay. It just like, there are so many tools to use to comfort ourselves and calm ourselves, but being prepared for that before it happens, knowing I'm going to be triggered, I'm going to be anxious. What am I going to do? I'm going to have a plan, and as soon as I start feeling those, I'm going to use, like, I had 3 different things I could use, so that if I wasn't able to do that one, I was able to do this one. There are so many techniques, but just know that it's unusual for you, but it's really normal. Other people experience real emotions. Welcome to the human world.
I have a slightly different take, which is I can do anxiety and fear and worry and be all the map over the map emotionally, but panic attacks worry me because, like, I've had those when I was driving, and it's terrifying. Like, your heart is pounding, and you feel like you're going to run into another car. You're just this wave of anxiety. So I do think that that's certainly worth seeing a doctor about. I'm not saying they're going to give you more drugs to replace the drugs that you were taking, but there, we have a concept in addiction therapy, which is that people are often replacing what they might use as a medication. Like, I might be on Prozac to help with anxiety or whatever, but that's because I drank to deal with my anxiety. It didn't, but it was still an underlying issue that had to be dealt with. In other words, I was self-medicating, is what we call it. So I agree with Tammy. You should be having raw feelings. You should be overwhelmed. You should be, and not only that, but you took yourself out of 2, not 1, but 2 major problems that are distracting and give you a chance to leave your emotions. And also, you're used to having not just 1, but 2 different ways to disappear. So the intensity of what you're feeling, I don't doubt. And I agree with Tammy. It's very healthy, in fact, and uncomfortable, but healthy. However, if your anxiety is such that you get overwhelmed and you can't go to work, or you don't want to drive, or, it really starts to affect your being functional, or is scary to you, then I probably would see someone about the panic attacks, because that isn't that may make things worse for you, really, rather than dealing with that.
Then see a qualified professional who gets addiction and isn't just going to, pop you some pills so to manage. I mean, you want the right medication if you're going to, like, you want to be seen by somebody. I say, if you're, this is like going to the cancer specialist. You want the right person. You don't want to go to your GP and, hope that they can figure it out. So if if you go that route, but I would, I don't know your level of anxiety. I know my level of anxiety was, I hated it. It was highly uncomfortable. And I learned some techniques to manage through it. And now I have an appreciation for both joy and, for pain, so like the joy better, gotta say. But next question. Thank you so much for this gift. The podcast has been a great help to me. I'm a 27-year-old gay male who has struggled with porn addiction for
You
15
skipped a
years.
question.
No, I'm in answered. No,
He started.
the one person came, like a whole bunch of them, so I tried to pull them in.
But
So
I'd like to answer that question if you don't mind, and then we can go on to the next one. I don't mean to be rude, but he started. I think that's a good question to ask.
yeah, I already answered. We already answered that.
Oh, the out of the doghouse question?
Yes,
Oh, I'm
yes,
sorry.
yeah.
I did want to say something about that, if you don't mind, which is, um, Out of the Doghouse is a book and a process for men to understand and have empathy and compassion for someone they've cheated on, a woman. But it is not a guide to recovery. And I see a lot of guys like, oh, I'm doing Out of the Doghouse. Great. You'll learn how to be a kinder and more loving partner or a husband. But it isn't going to get you sober. And so, if you want to get sober, you have to do the sex addiction 101 stuff or the porn addiction 101 stuff. You have to focus on your problem. One of the reasons why I think men like Out of the Doghouse is because it's a direct line to, how do I get her to forgive me? How do I get her to feel better about me? How do I get her? But that's not your primary concern, even though you think it is. Your primary concern is to stop the behavior. And unless you do that, it doesn't matter how well you show empathy and compassion through Doghouse because it isn't real. You're just going to do it again. So anyway, thanks, Tammy. I wanted to get that up.
So somebody put, for your narcissistic personality, somebody said, don't worry, Dr. Rob, they probably are leaving due to Tammy, not you. So,
Ah, well, we just lost another 6 people.
oh,
So
it's
there
all
you
fine,
go.
but I just cracked up. I said,
Oh,
it's
it's
probably
dinner
true.
time. That's why. Okay,
Well, hang
is this the
on.
one you want to
I
just
like
do this
we
one?
have we started this
Okay.
one. So
Okay, go for it.
27-year-old gay male have struggled with porn addiction for 15 years. I'm in my first romantic relationship with a man, and we have been dating for 1 year now. I told him I have a porn addiction and he is supportive of my recovery, but I have not told him that I sexted a few strangers on social media since we've been together, and I feel horrible about it. He is also the first person I lost my virginity to. He wants to move in together and eventually get married one day, but I don't think we should do any of those things until he knows every part of me. My question is, what do you suggest would be the best way to put everything out there? I don't want to mislead him any more than I have already. Thank you for sharing that and being so vulnerable. So, Dr. Rob,
And
what
I
do you
would
have to
also,
say?
well, I would also say that you don't want to put everything out there to overwhelm your partner. You may say things that he is not ready for that might overwhelm him, that he doesn't understand, especially since you are just really beginning to understand this yourself. I will say that I wrote a book for gay men who are sex addicts. Remember, I've written 10 of them, so I have lots I can throw out at you. It's called Cruise Control, Understanding Gay Men and Sex, Understanding Sex Addiction in Gay Men. And I think you'll find it very helpful if you haven't read it because it really defines the difference between healthy sexuality and unhealthy sexuality for addicts. Because gay world is a very has a very different sexual norms than the heterosexual community, and it's kind of like being an alcoholic in a bar. Everyone's drinking, so how to define what is healthy or not for you is maybe, well, this is why I wrote the book. But so, one of the most painful things that I hear from spouses is, I can't believe that he asked me to marry him without telling me everything that was going on in his life. I feel cheated because I didn't have the choice as to whether I wanted to be with this man or not because I didn't know everything about him. So I really admire you and appreciate your desire to make sure that he does know everything about you before he commits to living with you. But part of my question is, are you sober? Have you changed your behavior? Are you going to S meetings? Are you going to therapy? You said I have a porn addiction and he supported my recovery. What is your recovery? And why are you sexting strangers on social media? Yeah, you feel horrible about it. Maybe you could work on not doing it. So one of my concerns is that it's very difficult to tell a partner what your history is if you're still actively doing it, because they or barely understand it. They're just gaining insight into it, and you're continuing to hurt them as you're explaining it to them. And, I think that's problematic. You're not going to do it perfectly, but boy, you need to let them know more. So here's what I would do. Hopefully you're in therapy or seeing a therapist. I would invite your partner to come into therapy or go to theirs and say, I want to be in a safe place to talk about these issues. It's very typical for us to minimize, to avoid, to play it down, to we don't want to lose them, we don't want to hurt them. I think you need guidance and support to work. I wouldn't do this alone. How about that? I would use guidance and support both for yourself and your partner to work through this. He may be angry, he may not want to be with you, he may not want to move in with you, he may not want to marry you, but that is your responsibility to be honest and let him make his own decisions. And by withholding information from this person, you're basically manipulating them. And boy, is it going to be bad if they find out 3 years from now when you're married that you lied while becoming engaged or whatever. So two pieces of this. One, you need a professional to help hold you accountable and guide you through this. Two is I would not marry someone or have them move in until they had some real sense of what was going on, because I need to give them the option of whether they want to be with me or not. Yeah, Tammy, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, the only thing is I'm just so proud of you for like being here and looking at how can I do this with integrity. So I really appreciate that you're exploring that, and you know, I have hopes that the relationship continues and that you guys can navigate it together. So that's all.
May I say one more thing?
Sure.
I love the fact that in 2022, you could take out the word gay male and put in I'm a 27-year-old guy or a 27-year-old woman, and it would be exactly the same. Because these issues have nothing to do with gay or straight or brown or yellow, or they're human issues. They're part of the human condition. And you talk about, and every spouse knows this, I'm in my relationship, I have an addiction, there's supportive recovery, I've been I mean, this is all the stuff that everybody says. So I want to tie that to it's just human, the human struggle and addiction. And it doesn't matter who turns you on or what turns you on. What matters is you don't want to hurt yourself or other people.
Right. And he wants to be transparent in the relationship. I think that that's fantastic. So good.
Can I say one more thing? You said he's also the first person I lost my virginity to. And while that may be true technically, if you've been looking at porn for 15 years and you've been dedicating, have you been having cam sex? Have you been having, have you been sexting? I'm not saying that you were physically touched, but emotionally, and in terms of your behavior, you're no virgin. Physically, you may be or may have been, but you have way too much knowledge and experience to look at your life that way. Yeah. So I'm not saying that you didn't lose your virginity to this person, but I think to look at yourself in that way might be kind of being a little naive about who you are. Thanks, Tammy.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Glad you were here. Lots more stuff going on sexandrelationshiphealing.com this week. Check it out. Thanks.
Thanks for your time. You have a good night,
Bye.
Tammy. Bye, everybody.